we have been given an L3 H2 Peugeot Boxer, an EcoFlow Delta portable power pack, and a budget of £12,000 to turn this van into a home from home for our friends Darren and Amy. In this vlog, we will be starting the build by mounting everything we need on the outside of the van and bringing it in. It's probably a good idea to start your van build with any exterior works before you start building on the interior. Besides much easier access, it also means that there's no chance of spoiling any interior trim or decor you may have already put up. We're going to start this van build by building a roof rack system with 41 by 21 slotted UNISTRUT. A roof rack system allows for the easy mounting of solar panels and any other storage system you may find useful. With Darren and Amy working to a budget, the galvanised UNISTRUT is very cost effective and will support solar panels which will supply power to the EcoFlow portable power pack, which in turn will power the van's habitat. So we purchased 6 3-metre lengths of 41 by 21 slotted UNISTRUT. 2 for the sides and 1 for the cross pieces that go from one side of the van to the other. We also purchased 6 mounting brackets from Mule Vans to allow us to fit the UNISTRUT to those lugs found onto the top of the van's roof, and also several end caps as well to make neat the finished job. We start by mounting the brackets, hooking part of the bracket under the lug on the van with a spacer plate over the top. Now it can be a little bit tight to fit those bottom brackets, so a little nudge with a hammer and a punch does the trick. There are 4 lugs on the top of an L3 van, but we're only going to be wanting to use 3 of them because we want our rack to fall short so we can fit our Maxxair fan. Once we fitted our mounting brackets, we cut 2 lengths of UNISTRUT for each side of the van, and with the flat side facing down, cut and drilled a 40mm by 5mm strip of rubber to fit in between the UNISTRUT and bracket. This brings the bolt threads that's on the bracket flush with the tops of the UNISTRUT so they're not standing proud, and protects the 2 mating surfaces before securely clamping it down. And then for a neat professional look, we finish the ends of the UNISTRUT with plastic end caps. With the sides firmly clamped, we can now measure across the width and cut our cross pieces. Now each length of UNISTRUT comes in a 3-metre length, and we only need 1.6 metres roughly for each cross strip, so there is a lot of waste. You end up with about 1.4 metres times 4 of UNISTRUT. But never mind, it's not expensive stuff, and if you keep hold of that UNISTRUT you'll find it might be useful somewhere else in the build. Those cross pieces can now be firmly clamped down using large washers, an 8mm bolt and a channel nut which is designed to twist and lock inside the UNISTRUT. With the roof rack now finished, we now have a rigid structure onto which we're going to be mounting some solar panels. Now we're buying some solar panels from Renogy because their 200-watt solar panel fits the width of this roof rack exactly. So on Darren's van we're going to be fitting 2 200-watt solar panels from Renogy. Holes were drilled down 2 pieces of our UNISTRUT cross pieces and matching holes along the outer sides of our 2 solar panels. The 2 solar panels were bolted together and the 2 pieces of UNISTRUT bolted to the remaining sides. The whole structure was then easily lifted as one and firmly bolted in place. A marine gland neatly and securely makes a watertight entry for our solar cable and completes the rack and solar system. There is space to spare on this easy build rack. We could easily accommodate an additional solar panel or a host of storage systems and accessories that can be quickly and easily adapted by just bolting on or off. How much did it cost? This whole rack system cost £250, and I really believe looks the part. Could it have been done any cheaper? Yes, it could. Those brackets we use from mule vans cost £150, and there are plenty of YouTube vlogs that show you how to build your own little adapters using any spare UNISTRUT you may have. Personally, I didn't want the faff, and for the £150, I believe that the mule van's brackets do make the roof rack look very, very professional. Do you need a roof rack at all? No. If it's within your budget, you can just bolt your solar panels direct to the roof of your van. However, perhaps in the future if they need changing, access to the bolts might be difficult if you've already panelled the interior of your van. So how does this roof rack system compare with our own? I believe that the UNISTRUT roof rack is very, very cost effective, as our roof rack cost approximately £800. Weight for weight, they're pretty much the same. The advantage our roof rack has over a UNISTRUT roof rack is that the slots in the extruded aluminium allows for multiple mounting points. It allowed for the very, very easy fitting of our awning. Our roof rack also has a curved front profile, and this means that in the extruded aluminium our roof rack is very, very quiet. There's no wind noise, which I probably expect there might be with this UNISTRUT rack. From as little as £99, a UNISTRUT roof rack offers you a lot of bang for your buck. It offers quite a rigid and stylish structure to mount your solar, and allows for any easy servicing or adjustment. Now this rack keeps us well within Darren and Amy's budget, without any compromise on the quality of the finished build. Now let's take a quick look at fitting the Maxxair fan. I know this has been well documented, but many people omit the very, very important preparation work that needs to be done to ensure that Max fan doesn't leak in the future.
There you are. There are quite a few YouTube vlogs out there of people fitting their Maxxair fans, of which I spend most of my time screaming at the screen. Not surprised why so many of them are leaking. Now it's quite a process to fit a Maxxair fan. There's quite a lot of preparation work that needs to be done. But also what a lot of people don't consider is the temperature in which you're fitting your Maxxair fan and where you're likely to be travelling to. And I'll explain why.
Starting from the inside of the van for easy access, I measure and mark the corners of the square I'll be cutting out on a noticeable flat section of the roof where no ribs will interfere with the perfectly flat mounting of our Maxxair fan. The hole we'll be cutting is 400 by 400mm and slightly off centre, avoiding a plate I had to fit to cover a hole left by one of those spinny venty things. The cab area is covered to protect from any metal swarf that will fall, and after double checking on the measurements, 2 holes were cut on opposing corners the diameter of our jigsaw blade, and fully within the 400 by 400mm outline. Using those points, we could now mark all corners while continuing to check those measurements. Several strips of masking tape was built up around the area, which will protect the paintwork from the foot of the jigsaw and help collect much of the metal swarf as we cut. All 4 corners were joined with a marker pen. And finally checked before beginning to make our cut. Starting from one hole, we could make 2 cuts at right angles, and before completing, I applied some more masking tape under the cut piece to save it from dropping to the floor. Now any metal swarf and dust must be removed, as any left on the van will go rusty and embed in your paintwork, leaving marks that are hard work to polish out. Taking a file can smooth off any sharp edges before a clean with panel wipe. And a quick spray with galvanising paint. I like to use galvanising spray, as besides it being a very protective coating, no primer is necessary. On the bench, I drill out the marked holes in the Maxxair frame where stainless steel screws will be used, and checking that the frame fits our hole, start to drill through our metal roof through the corresponding screw holes. Now the holes in the plastic need to take the screws without resistance to avoid cracking the plastic, but can be marginally smaller in the metal to offer some grip. Only 2 holes are initially drilled, so 2 screws can be put in place to ensure all the other holes align perfectly. And it's then removed before starting the chemical bonding process. To successfully fit a Maxxair fan, we rely on a mechanical fixing using screws and a chemical fixing using mastic sealing strip and I like to finish off with a polyurethane sealant. The chemical part relies on a good clean surface and dramatically improves its bond by increasing the surface area by lightly sanding the mating surfaces. I use a Scotch pad, which leaves microscopic furrows on both the roof and then the frame, before I clean and degrease with panel wipe. We can now apply our mastic tape to the bottom of the frame, making sure the tape meets well at the corners, leaving no gaps. Now a quick panel wipe to the roof before removing the mastic paper coverings and firmly pressing the frame into place. It's advisable to make a wooden frame to sandwich the steelwork of your van and offer a firm fixing of the Maxxair frame. The wood frame also ensures little distortion of the metal around the screws, which may result in leaks, and it is built to the depth of where our ceiling covering will go, which offers an ideal fixing point for the ceiling covering, and Maxxair trim will be adding later. A squirt of polyurethane sealant improves the bond, and with a couple of clamps holding everything in place, we can apply the mechanical fixings, being careful to tighten everything without any distortion of the plastic.
Now usually at this stage I seal the edges with a polyurethane sealant, but it is way too hot today. It's 24 degrees, but the temperature is going to fluctuate from 24 down to 16, and that's not conducive for this stuff to seal very well. So all I'm going to do now is drop the Maxxair fan on to keep the weather out, and I'm going to wait for a better day to do the sealing. In the meantime, I'm going to drop on the solar. I'm not looking forward to that. Those big black sheets are going to be boiling. Oh shit, spilled me coffee. Now this is more like it. An even temperature all day of about 16 and 17 degrees, ideal for me to finish off putting my sealant around the Maxxair frame surround. The other day when we bonded this down onto the mastic tape, the temperature variation was between 14 degrees and 28 degrees. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, what's that got to do with anything? This stuff here that we're going to be putting around the outside, or any other good quality polyurethane sealant on the market, takes a few hours to cure. And in those few hours we were seeing a temperature increase of about 10 degrees. Now for the sealants are very, very good quality, and that doesn't affect those. But what it does affect is the other two components that's actually involved in creating this seal, and that is one of the plastic and the other of the metal roof, which are going to be expanding. Now when they expand, while this is trying to seal, the problem we may have is that as those two materials expand at two different rates, there is a likelihood and a possibility that it may cause some tears and some fractures in the sealant as it's sealing. You're beginning to get it now, aren't you?
It's also worth considering the extremes of temperatures you're likely to experience on your travels, and plan any sealing of large components like skylights and glass at a midpoint between the two. Personally, I like to seal it around a constant 16 degrees, which I know only gives me opportunities around spring and autumn. But at 16 degrees, this limits any expansion and contraction of different materials, as I travel between environments between -3 and 35 degrees. I know this may not be easy to fit into a van build schedule, but sealing plastics, metal and glass at temperature extremes can double the rate of expansion or contraction, and increase that risk of failing sealant, or at worst case, shattering glass. So after again a light scotch and panel wipe, I fix masking tape around the seam I want to seal for a neat uniform bead of sealant. Less is more with sealant. Thick and thin wads of poorly applied sealant, usually seen within the ribs of the van, again have different expansion and contraction rates and may cause tears and leaks. Masking tape is applied to the metal of the van and to the plastic of the Maxxair frame all around the join where they meet, gapped at about 6 or 7 millimeters. This area of the van is flat, which makes for a simple bead, but if you're fitting a fan to an area that's ribbed, I'd highly recommend the plastic adapter to keep any bead in uniform rather than fill in those big gaps with sealant. One more clean with panel wipe to remove any greasy fingerprints, and we can then start applying our thin bead of sealant. Try not to apply too much at this stage, and don't worry if you appear to be missing areas between the masking tape, as taking a finger dipped in soapy water, you can make smooth your bead before removing your masking tape whilst wet. Now if you're brave, with a soapy finger and the lightest of touch, Give the sealant one last smooth over for a job well done. The main fan was fitted, aligning 4 holes with clips on the side of the surround. A rubber seal can make aligning tricky. I find a gentle press down on the fan gets you somewhere near, and starting each screw at an angle draws everything square as you tighten the screws sequentially, a bit at a time. Fitting the fan with all sealants cost around £325. Scotch pads and panel wipe I find essential throughout the build of a van, which can be added as consumables to the total van cost. Unlike our van, we're only fitting one fan to Darren and Amy's van, avoiding putting one over the bed as often recommended. We find that having bedroom windows that open, with one fan up front, provides better airflow over the bed to keep cool in warm weather. We also find early morning light coming through the vent is quite disrupting, and without sound deadening, rain on plastic and ambient noise can be disturbing. So if you're planning opening windows around your bed area, you could save yourself up to £300. So let's take a look now at fitting some windows, and how getting somebody else to fit them for you can not only save you money, but give you peace of mind. Cutting a hole in the top of your van to fit a Maxxair fan is scary enough, but cutting several larger holes to fit windows can be absolutely terrifying. Appointing a professional to cut out and bond in windows can take all the stress away, but can come to quite a cost. So many people will therefore decide to have a go, most of who quite successfully, but there are many who end up with leaks without the skills to remove the glass, clean and start again. Attempts are usually then made to add more sealant around the edge of the glass, which hopefully solves the problem, but can often look sightly and lead to disappointment. However, there is another way, a reassuring way, a way that won't cost you any more money than bonding the glass yourself. With every window, you're encouraged to purchase this, a fitting kit. It costs about £20, and what you get is instructions, some polyurethane sealant, a glove, some primer and an applicator. You also often get some pointless trim, which if you fit in smaller windows is pretty useless as it doesn't leave enough of an area to bond the glass to the van with. Now here's how you can remove all of the stress from bonding windows. If you are willing to cut out all of the holes yourself, which isn't really too tricky a job, a professional window fitter will come and fit your windows using all of his own materials for £20 a window. And if they make a mistake, they'll come back and rectify the problem. It's a no-brainer. Preparing to cut windows, we start by removing the supports that give some rigidity to the larger van panels. These are not structural and are easily removed by drilling out the 4-spot wells and breaking the bond easily with a knife. Several areas have these supports that stop the large panels flexing and are all removed in the same fashion. Do keep them once removed, as in a future vlog I'll be showing you how I refit them if fitting a smaller window and use them to support the window trim. Carefully measure the internals of each window, not the full window as some have done, and we can now transfer those measurements to the van's panel. Starting from a central point, we mark on the panel the overall square of the internals of our window. Cool, let's do this.
Have you got some tape?
Yeah, I'll get some tape.
On masking tape, we then follow the outline and check in measurements scribed with a marker pen our cut lines. Using masking tape allows for any mistakes or alterations without marking the van, which may lead to confusion.
5'5". Oh, it's about 175. Bloody hell.
Bloody hell.
Bloody hell.
It also stops the jigsaw foot from scratching the paintwork and catches a good quantity of metal swarf. I'm usually lucky enough to find some round object that equates to the contours of the inner windows. All differ, but I usually find some type of container lid to suit. Once the corners have been scribed, we can now drill a hole to take the size of our jigsaw blade. I often see folk drilling many holes around the contour before using the jigsaw. I have absolutely no idea why, as I've always made do with just the one hole. With a quality sharp blade, we can now follow the contour line all the way around, applying some masking tape strips as we go to catch the panel, saving it from falling and causing damage or injury.
Let there be light! And those light! With all our window holes cut, we now give Paul from Expert Windows a call, who covers the North Lincolnshire area. This is not the first time we've used Paul, who is well aware of the problems people have fitting windows themselves.
Tell me why people shouldn't do this themselves.
Just basically because if they don't get it quite right, it can leak very easily. It's easy to get it wrong. And then they call me out.
Yes. And how many times has that happened, Paul?
I probably do one camper a week at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul soon sets to, giving the windows a good clean, making sure both the glass and then the van is free from grease and grime. Checking I've done a good job of cutting the holes correctly, Paul expertly applies the primer with the smoothest of action.
You've done this before, mate?
A couple of times.
The whole van is primed, before moving on to apply the same primer to the edges of our windows. And again, with the most enviable of smooth actions, from a really cool electric mastic gun, Paul applies that perfect triangular bead of polyurethane sealant. Sealing one window at a time, on goes our first window, in again a smooth, effortless move. A quick check to see if all's square, and then the sealant pretty much grabs instantly, needing only a few bits of tape to hold in place. It doesn't take long to then fit our bunk windows. On goes the sealant, and on goes the window, followed by our rear doors, and finally the driver's side.
Do give your local window fitter a ring. It's likely he'll charge you £20 to come and fit a window, which is the price of a fitting kit, using all of his own materials, saving you the stress. Purchasing and fitting all 6 windows cost £1,140. Added to fitting our roof rack, solar and Maxxair fan, we've so far spent £2,060 on the majority of external works. We still need to make holes for 240 volt and water access, which we'll cover in a future vlog, as we'll figure out where we'll be precisely fitting our water supply and electrics. In our next vlog, we will be covering this bed over garage build to allow adequate room for transporting 2 mountain bikes, applying insulation and sound deadening into the garage, and installing a 60 litre over wheel arch fresh water tank. So please like and subscribe to not miss out. And if you found this vlog interesting and of use to you, I'll try and link some of the products we've used and services in the description. But I'm not really sure how to do that. It's probably going to take me an age, so no promises. Because in the meantime, Nikki and I are going to do a few pub stops.